If I go away and I come back and I look different, that is not me.
Let that sink in for a moment. Kanye West, one of the most recognizable, most talked about human beings on the face of this earth, stared directly into a camera lens and delivered a message to the entire world. "If I disappear and come back changed," he said, "it's not me." The majority of the public chuckled, scrolled past it, and forgot it ever happened. But that was a mistake, a serious one.
I've seen what they do. The ritualistic behaviors, the drugging, putting girls in the suitcases, dumping them in alleyways. It's horrifying.
This is Mel Gibson, a man the entire Hollywood machine tried to permanently erase from existence. Blacklisted, publicly shamed, professionally destroyed, simply because he refused to go quiet. And here he is, sitting across from Joe Rogan in what may be one of the most explosive conversations to come out of the entertainment world in years. Only this time, he is not talking about Jeffrey Epstein. He has moved past that. What he is talking about now is significantly, disturbingly worse.
What does the evil side want?
Oh, it wants you. It wants...
Who exactly is cloning celebrities inside the walls of Hollywood? According to Mel Gibson, the answer is no longer just a whisper in the dark. And once you hear what he has to say, the way you look at your favorite stars will never quite be the same again. To fully grasp why Gibson's conversation with Joe Rogan carries the weight that it does, you first have to understand what was done to Mel Gibson himself. Because this was not a man who tripped over his own ego and stumbled out of the spotlight. This was a man who was deliberately pushed out. Consider the timeline. Through the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, Mel Gibson was operating at the absolute peak of the entertainment industry. Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, The Passion of the Christ. He was not just a star, he was a force. Owing a director and actor with the kind of cultural clout and financial power that opened every door in town. And more importantly, he had access. The kind of access most people in Hollywood spend their entire careers chasing. The private dinners, the closed-door screenings, the parties where phones stayed in pockets and conversations stayed off the record. Then came 2006, a traffic stop in Malibu. And just like that, the curtain fell. His career did not fade, it evaporated. Overnight. The same industry that had celebrated and courted Mel Gibson for decades turned on him in one swift, coordinated motion, moving with a speed and a unanimity that Hollywood almost never demonstrates on anything. Every door shut at exactly the same moment, and that, more than anything else, is the detail worth sitting with. Because an organic cancellation does not move like that. One incident does not make an entire industry respond in perfect, simultaneous lockstep, unless something much more calculated is driving the reaction.
I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me.
What you are looking at is not the portrait of a man who simply got canceled and accepted his fate. What you are looking at is the portrait of a man describing a very specific kind of disorientation. The confusion of someone who was part of an inner circle, who understood the rules of the world they inhabited, and then found themselves cut off from it completely, without warning, without explanation, and without appeal. He knew things, and the people who wanted those things kept quiet, made absolutely certain he would pay for knowing them. But here's where the story takes a turn the industry did not anticipate. Mel Gibson did not vanish. He did not quietly check himself into a treatment center and come out a different, softer, more manageable version of himself. What? He did not film a tearful redemption video and start showing up to award shows with a new publicist and a new face. He simply waited. He sat with it. And then, when the moment was right, he started talking.
The human sacrifice aspect is alive and well in our society, I think.
It really is. It's just dressed up in a different way.
This is the Mel Gibson that Hollywood has been dreading for years. The version of him that walks into Joe Rogan's studio, the most widely listened to platform on the entire planet, and simply starts saying the quiet parts out loud, not carefully, not with a legal team reviewing every sentence, not with a crisis manager feeding him approved talking points through an earpiece. Just raw, unfiltered, and completely unbothered, like a man who has already absorbed the worst the industry could throw at him and arrived at the liberating conclusion that he has absolutely nothing left to protect. And what came out of that conversation rerouted the entire discussion. According to sources with direct knowledge of what was said during the Rogan recording, Gibson did not limit himself to Epstein. He did not simply revisit the trafficking networks or the blackmail architecture. Territory that, by now, even mainstream outlets have been forced to acknowledge. He went a full level deeper. He started talking about what actually happens to the celebrities who try to leave the system, not the ones who get taken down by carefully timed scandals. Not the ones who get quietly blacklisted and pushed into irrelevance. He was talking about the ones who get replaced. Before anyone moves to dismiss that, it is worth noting that this theory did not originate in the corner of the internet where people argue about flat Earth. It has been quietly and consistently validated by some of the most credible, most sharp, most well-sourced voices in the entertainment industry for years. As Cat Williams said it plainly in one of the most watched interviews in the entire history of online media. Kanye West said it directly to camera in the period before he disappeared. And then there is Jim Carrey, a man who spent the better part of 2 decades methodically and publicly dismantling the very industry that built him into one of the biggest stars on Earth, who showed up at the César Awards in Paris in early 2026 looking, in the eyes of millions of people who watched the footage, like an entirely different human being.
It's a wonderful feeling. I really took on a pretty big challenge trying to do my speech in French.
Now hold that image in your mind and compare it to this.
There is no me.
There's no you.
No.
Those are not the same energy. Those are not the same eyes. And according to thousands of fans and observers who have broken down that footage frame by frame with a level of forensic obsession that most investigative journalists could learn from, those are not the same person. The lines that mapped decades of expression across Jim Carrey's face were gone. The bone structure appeared shifted in ways that plastic surgery alone struggles to account for. And then there were the eyes. Jim Carrey's eyes have been famously, unmistakably brown for the entirety of his public life and career. The man who appeared on that Paris stage had green eyes. You can build a plausible case around a lot of physical changes, surgery, dramatic weight fluctuation, the strange and sometimes startling ways that the human face responds to time. But you cannot construct a reasonable explanation for a spontaneous change in eye color without the use of contact lenses, and not a single person who watched that footage came away believing those were contacts. Mel Gibson's argument, as conveyed through sources who were present during the Rogan conversation, is as chilling as it is simple. He believes there is an active, funded, and deliberately concealed program operating at the highest levels of the entertainment industrial complex. One that identifies the celebrities who become genuine threats to the system and then does not silence them, but replaces them.
We're not here. This is a...
Yeah, if they're telling you that there's no clones, the guy telling you is probably...
Not eliminates them, replaces them. Sit with the implications of that for a moment. Because if the theory is correct, it means that the very person standing up to deny it could themselves be living proof of it. The system becomes self-sealing. Every denial issued by a replacement only deepens the architecture of the original cover-up. And according to Gibson, the technology required to execute this kind of program has been in existence for considerably longer than the general public has been allowed to know. He pointed specifically to something that most people registered as a novelty and quickly forgot: dog cloning. This is not science fiction. Today, right now, you can pay a commercial company to clone your pet. The DNA is extracted, an embryo is cultivated, and what is produced is an animal so deeply and unsettlingly similar to the original, down to behavioral patterns and personality quirks, that the people who receive them frequently describe the experience as surreal.
Clone. They've made human clones. They've made dog clones. You can get your dog cloned. If your dog's going to die, you can get the DNA from your dog, get a puppy, and it'll be eerily similar to your dog. They think including some...
So if that technology is currently available on the open commercial market for household pets, if any private citizen with sufficient funds can walk up to a company and order a genetic replica of their dog, then the question that Mel Gibson posed to Rogan becomes nearly impossible to dodge. What do you believe has been happening inside private laboratories with unlimited black budget funding, zero public oversight, and 30 years of undisturbed runway? Gibson's answer, according to those with knowledge of the conversation, is precisely what most people are already thinking but are afraid to say. And of all the case studies he walked through during that Rogan sit-down, the one he returned to most and examined most carefully was Kanye West, which makes sense, because Kanye, uniquely and almost accidentally, gave the world something no one else in his position ever had. He gave us a control, a documented, high-definition, undeniable before picture. A baseline so thoroughly established and so exhaustively recorded that when the after version arrived, there was simply no way to look at it without noticing the gap.
personality traits.
Like, we're gonna take your money, we're gonna block you, we're gonna do this, we're gonna take your life. Like a lot of, my life has been through, I wake up every day just...
What the world was watching in that period was a man under active siege. A man who understood with complete clarity what the machine he had been built inside of was truly capable of, and who had made the decision to say so publicly, loudly, and without the softening filter of a publicist or a PR strategy. He named the threats. He named specific individuals. He spoke about MK Ultra. He detailed his belief that his own personal trainer had connections to Canadian military intelligence. He described what he characterized as deliberate, targeted attempts to force him onto medication designed to blunt him into silence. And then came the warning. The one that, in hindsight, was not a metaphor. It was not a lyric written for emotional effect. It was not a cry for help dressed in poetic language. It was a direct, precise, factual prediction of exactly what was coming.
Prize to be alive.
If I go away and I come back and I look different, that is not me.
If I ever win any...
He told the world. He spelled it out, word by word, before any of it happened. He described what they were going to do to him with a specificity that left no room for misinterpretation, and the world watched it unfold in real time and reached for the most comfortable available explanation: a mental breakdown. Mel Gibson's position, stated with clarity and directness during the Rogan conversation, is that what happened to Kanye West was not a breakdown. It was a replacement. Because look at what came back. A man publicly apologizing to the same industry he had spent the better part of a year tearing down with surgical precision. A man who returned to the exact medication he had previously and repeatedly declared on camera that he would rather die than take. A man engaging in behavior so publicly self-destructive and so utterly at odds with every instinct the original Kanye West had ever demonstrated that the contrast was not subtle. It was not the kind of change you explain with personal growth or spiritual evolution. It was a rupture.
Where we know why.
I would rather be dead, not in jail, because I'd rather be dead.
And yet the world largely accepted it. The Kanye who reemerged was medicated, was apologetic, was cooperative, was everything that the Kanye on those cameras had sworn, repeatedly, passionately, on the record, that he would never allow himself to become. Mel Gibson looked at Joe Rogan and said it plainly. That's not a man who changed his mind. That's a man who no longer exists. Now the conversation turns to Jamie Foxx. Because if Kanye West is the warning label, Jamie Foxx is the itemized receipt. The core facts here are not contested territory. In April of 2023, Jamie Foxx suffered a medical emergency that his team addressed with a series of statements so vague they functioned as non-statements. Then he came back. But here's the thread that the mainstream press chose, collectively, not to pull. The timing. And Jamie Foxx went dark at the precise moment that Diddy's legal situation began accelerating in a serious way. And when Foxx resurfaced, it was publicly, visibly, and in a manner that felt carefully orchestrated. Right in the window surrounding the finalization of Diddy's sentencing.
To be on medication. Jamie Foxx ain't shit. That nigga gonna make you watch his funeral. Nigga televised his funeral.
Cat Williams, who has demonstrated a more consistently accurate read on the internal mechanics of Hollywood than virtually any working journalist, went on record with a specific and striking claim that Jamie Foxx had been present at Diddy's parties, and that the man who came back from that hospital was missing a tattoo on the back of his head that the real Jamie Foxx had carried his entire life.
He ain't even dead. With a face full of freckles. We ain't never even seen Jamie Foxx with freckles. Clone is...
Jamie Foxx himself eventually stepped into the clone conversation directly, addressing the rumors in front of a live audience at a show in Atlanta. And credit where it is due, the response was genuinely funny. It was warm, it was quick, it had all the charm and comedic timing that made Jamie Foxx a household name in the first place.
Stupid as hell.
Can't clone this. I brought you too much original. It ain't enough clone juice in the world.
But here's the specific point that Mel Gibson raised with Joe Rogan. The very fact that Jamie Foxx is out there joking about clone theories, relaxed, at ease, laughing it off in front of a crowd with the ease of a man who has not a single worry in the world, is by itself a data point worth examining. Because the Jamie Foxx who walked into that hospital in April of 2023 was, by multiple accounts, connected to evidence that had the potential to cause catastrophic damage to some of the most powerful and protected figures in the entire entertainment industry. That man had every reason in the world to be afraid. He had every reason to be anything but comfortable. This is also where Mel Gibson draws the line that connects both halves of the story, because up until this moment, and you might reasonably be tracking two separate threads, clone theories running down one corridor, the Epstein network running down another, and wondering what, if anything, links them. Gibson's argument on Rogan is that they are not separate corridors at all. They are the same room. Epstein, he argued, was not simply running a blackmail operation. He was running a full-scale intelligence operation. And the product of that operation was not compromising footage or leverage over individuals. The product was control. Total, absolute, generational control over the most influential decision-makers and cultural architects in the world.
To clone me.
Epstein wasn't just some random wealthy guy who liked hanging out with celebrities. He was a bridge. He connected the world of high-gloss entertainment, the world of movies and music and red carpets, to the world of high-level corruption, the world of power and money and influence that operates completely.
The flight logs, the blackmail files, the 300 names, all of that functioned as leverage. But leverage, Gibson pointed out, has a structural vulnerability. It only works for as long as the person being leveraged still cares about what you are holding over them. The moment someone decides the threat no longer outweighs the cost of silence, the moment a Kanye, a Jim Carrey, a Mel Gibson decides that burning the whole thing down is preferable to staying quiet, the leverage collapses. So what is the contingency? According to Gibson, you do not negotiate with the variable. You remove it. You take the person who has become a threat to the system out of the equation entirely and install someone who resembles them closely enough to preserve the illusion. And the Epstein network, with its unparalleled access to the wealthiest and most scientifically connected people on Earth, had both the resources and the infrastructure to execute exactly that. It was the bridge between Hollywood's public face and the shadow world operating just beneath it. And whoever controls the bridge controls everything that moves across it. Step back and look at the full picture, because what Mel Gibson described to Rogan was not a collection of isolated incidents. He described a pattern, a repeating, identifiable, step-by-step playbook. It begins when a celebrity accumulates enough platform and enough power to become a genuine threat to the system they operate within. It continues when they start speaking out publicly, and it concludes when somehow, someway, the person who had been screaming about corruption is suddenly back on red carpets, smiling for photographers and speaking warmly about the very industry they had been dismantling just months before.
Outside the public eye.
Every time it's the same playbook. A celebrity becomes disillusioned by money and fame and starts to expose the reality of what goes on behind closed doors. Then, suddenly, they disappear from the public for a few months and come back looking different and defending that same
The playbook does not vary. It runs exactly the same way every single time. And Mel Gibson, seated across from Joe Rogan with no career left to protect and no illusions left to maintain, told the world with complete conviction that this is not a series of coincidences. This is not the natural result of aging, personal transformation, or a change of heart. This is not mental illness used as a cultural explanation for inconvenient behavior. This is a deliberate, funded, and fiercely protected program. And according to Gibson, it has been operational for far longer than most people are anywhere close to willing to accept. Mel Gibson has been labeled with every unflattering term the industry's vocabulary contains: unhinged, dangerous, a conspiracy theorist, a liability. A cautionary tale trotted out whenever Hollywood needs an example of what happens when you step out of line. But look at the actual receipts. Look at the timeline with fresh eyes. Look at the faces before and after and ask yourself honest questions about what you are seeing. Kanye warned the world in plain language. Jim Carrey appeared in Paris looking like a different man. Jamie Foxx came back from a mysterious hospital stay at a moment that raises questions nobody in the mainstream press seems interested in answering. And Mel Gibson, the man this industry spent 20 years attempting to permanently silence, sat down with the most listened-to voice in podcasting and connected every single dot in front of a global audience. The real question is no longer whether any of this is happening. The real question is a much simpler and much more personal one. Are you willing to look at it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this one hit different, you already know what to do.